This podcast was brought to you by Anchor, the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. They have tools that allow you to record and edit right from your phone or computer. It allows you to distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can even make money without having a minimal listenership. It's basically everything you need and all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hey guys, and welcome again to the Awkward Black Nerd podcast. I'm Daisy Kane, and hopefully you guys are having a great day. Sorry if I sound like a little blah. I'm just a little emotionally drained because of current events, plus it being the middle of the week, and I just know that it's been a kind of a disheartening time for a lot of people, but hopefully you guys are powering through. I know I'm trying to, and not that I haven't had other good things going on. I've been very inspired lately. I've been focusing a lot more on my writing career. I've been trying to prepare for like a poetry book I have coming out. I'm still trying to figure out the date on that. As well as I'm working on two other books. Plus I do have a book that's already out and published, entitled My Brother's Keepers, on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Shameless plug. And actually, speaking of that, I actually got a really cool review from someone, and it was kind of detailed, and I just thought that was kind of interesting, and it just kind of it brought a smile to my face, because it's kind of you encourage, especially as a writer, you encourage people to give you reviews and stuff, and I just like that, how even though me being a writer is still kind of quaint, it's still kind of modest, it's just something that I've always loved, and it's a passion of mine. And that's kind of what this episode's about. It's kind of how writing has impacted my life, and how it impacted my life in a very important way. Like I said before, writing's been a huge part of my life ever since I was in elementary school. I remember I had a third grade teacher named Mrs. Albritton. I hope I'm saying, yeah, that's how you say her name. But I just remember that she was the one that really encouraged me to get into writing. She showed me what a thesaurus was, and she basically just said, don't be afraid to use the English language. You have a talent, just don't be lazy about your writing. If it's something that you're into, you can totally do it. She's the first person that kind of saw something in me. And plus, I was always that weirdo, and and especially when I moved to in Virginia Beach from Norfolk, I was that kind of that weird girl that always had a notebook, and it was kind of a journal where I was always writing thoughts from that I was feeling, or just short stories or poems and stuff. So that carried on to when I was in high school. And I remember when I was in high school, I used to write I had this poetry book. I think I still actually have it upstairs. It's Poor Things Falling Apart, where I had this poetry book, and where it had songs and just things that I was going through, especially relationships and stuff, and just silly little things. And I remember also writing a lot of fan fiction in high school. I'm not gonna tell you what it was about because it's kind of embarrassing. Boy band related. That's all I'm gonna leave it. But like I said, I also wrote a lot of poetry, and it's actually funny about fan fiction. Fan fiction is actually was the thing that kind of helped me through a really crucial part of my life. And actually the title of this episode is kind of based on that. Basically I'm gonna discuss how fan fiction actually helped me through postpartum depression. I had given birth to my daughter back in 2015. She's my one and only. She's 5 years old now. She just started kindergarten. She's she's my heart. She's my everything. But just I'm not gonna lie, just transitioning into motherhood was just a tough thing. And even now there's still days where I struggle with it, but just the beginning of it was just really, really brutal. And I think a lot of it had to do with plus it didn't help that I have I'm open about this. Anybody that knows me, and anybody that knows me, especially recently, I've talked about I've had histories like I've had like a history of like anxiety and depression, and like I've had like panic attacks in the past and stuff, and like I take medication for my anxiety now. It's like it's nothing to be ashamed of. But I just remember like growing up, I was never able to get like a whole like full handle on it. Like I remember like I was just told that I'm just naturally anxious, and I just never, like, I think the only time I really like addressed it when I was like younger was like I remember kind of seeking therapy when I lived in New York City briefly. Like I stayed with my aunt and my cousins in like Brooklyn, and like I came across this clinical trial where like they were kind of testing like this new medication. It was like I think it was a drug for like anxiety, and it was like a trial. And I remember it paid well. It was like every 2 weeks you get like over $100. You talk to a therapist for like an hour, and then like they check your general health and they draw some blood to make sure there's no side effects. And I remember talking to the therapist, and I remember it was like amazing. Like I opened up to her about like how I was like the tough time, like, cause long story short, I was going through a tough time before I moved to New York City. That's kind of the reason why I left, because like there was like issues going on with like my parents and stuff, and I didn't handle it well. Sorry. Plus I had like something going on with my fingernail. Plus I was going through stuff. So, and it was nice to talk to the therapist. Unfortunately, I had to cut the trial short because one of the trying to word it correctly. Basically, I couldn't take the trial any longer because I had a past of like having a suicide attempt, and they were worried that it might, because it was like it was an experimental drug, and they were still trying to like, I guess, work out the bugs. They thought I was at risk of like having more suicidal thoughts because I've had them in the past, so they didn't want to like, I guess it was like a liability issue. So unfortunately I had to stop. Although the therapist encouraged me to come back, but unfortunately at that time I didn't have like health insurance, because basically I had a job, but the job was like part-time. It was really shitty, and they didn't offer like health insurance, and so I couldn't really afford to go. But I still managed to like, I guess, keep like my anxiety under control over the years. Not really. It's like I managed it a lot. Like I just kind of like, I guess, muddled through. So let's just say like I guess I had a lid under it. Like I had a lid on it. I can't talk today. So I guess like as I got older, I like kind of managed it, but you could tell it was still like bubbling like under the surface a little bit. Like I had control of it, but not really having control over it. Fast forward to years later, meet the love of my life. We get married. We enjoy being married couple. We moved upstate New York, realized we want to start a family, and 30th birthday, I get pregnant. Hope that's not too much TMI, but that's what happened. And I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed being pregnant. Kind of like, it sucked that I did have to go on moderated bed rest for a little bit, and I ended up having to like leave work earlier than intended to. Although I think it was kind of a good thing, because I was working customer service for like a vision insurance company, and it was like super stressful. And that's kind of the reason, one of the many reasons why I had to go on moderated bed rest. I am sorry. It's like I'm muttering. It's because I'm talking really fast. But it was kind of a tough pregnancy too, because even though I only gained 12 pounds, so I didn't gain a lot of weight during the pregnancy, but because I had other health issues, like I have a history of high blood pressure and hypertension, plus there's like risk factors in my family of diabetes. Luckily I didn't get gastro diabetes, but I was at high risk of getting preeclampsia, and I was at risk of getting like having other complications. So it was, in the end, it was kind of a tough pregnancy. Although I enjoyed being pregnant, although I'm not gonna lie, the last like month and a half was brutal. But all in all, like I was lucky that I was able to get induced. Like the labor itself was tough, but I had a healthy baby, and she's amazing now. Like I love my daughter Natalie to death. So, but I'm not gonna lie, like even though like the labor itself and I had a healthy baby, I still had a hard time adjusting to motherhood, because not only did we moved to a new area. So we moved to upstate New York. I was still trying to like get to know people. Like I had a couple of friends, but I wasn't really close with anybody up here. And then like I was away from like a lot of my family. Like even though I had a family in New York, but they're still like 2 hours away from us, so they're not like I can't run straight down to them. And like, you know, all like both of our like parents are down south, so being away from family. And then it was just a tough transition also because we were going back on the forth on the idea of whether or not I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, because the childcare up here, in general is like ridiculous, but childcare up here is like cray. And you know, we were going back and forth. Like we didn't make the decision that I was going to officially be a stay-at-home mom until like the day before I went into active labor at the hospital. So with that too, and even then when I finally made a decision, it was still super tough on me because I've been working since I was like 16 years old, and I wasn't used to like just saying, okay, I'm gonna give up. Like it's not like I necessarily had like a career, but I was so used to working and so used to like one thing, and it was just like it was a transition within itself, becoming like a mom. And then on top of that, you know, I felt like I was kind of giving up an identity. Of course, it's like, it kind of was like a weird transition where I was becoming someone that it was hard to figure out who I was. So I was having a tough time, like, adjusting. Plus, I was having, like, a hard time, like, recovering. Like, I became anemic at one point. And plus, there was, I was having a hard time breastfeeding. And plus, like, I was kind of aware of like anybody that's been pregnant or anybody like a woman in general, like, you know, when we go through, you know, issues like if we have our period or if we go through like childbirth, we have like you know, there's certain symptoms like mood swings and like crying fits and things like that. But I remember right after childbirth, like, there's this thing called baby blues. Like, it's a familiar term where it's, like I said, it's mood swings and you have, like, crying spells and there's anxiety. But then, like, you know, on top of that, you have the insomnia because you're, like, you know, waking up hours of the night to feed your baby. Plus, you know, you're trying to, like, adjust to, like, your body healing. And plus, you just become irritable. So, like, I started having those symptoms. But then I realized that, like, those symptoms were becoming more and more, and like I was kind of aware of it, but people like I really didn't have, like, you kind of really don't have conversations about it. Like I really didn't have like a full-blown conversation about like those symptoms. And like actually like but like I said, it's like normal for women to go through that, especially after childbirth. Actually, like 10% of women will experience some kind of depression. And actually, it's considered the most common complication of childbirth. And actually, 15% of women experience more severe cases. And there's higher percentages when you think about it, when there's like other factors such as like poverty or even like teen pregnancy like that. But the symptoms I were having, I realized didn't disappear. Like even after I was like pretty much like after like, I think it was like 6 to 8 weeks, like they tell you to give your chance to like your body a chance to heal up. But then I realized it was like 2 months later and I was still kind of like something didn't feel right. And then like I realized that like my mood swings were becoming more severe. Luckily I didn't have difficulty like bonding with my like daughter, but I realized I was becoming more withdrawn from like certain things, like wanting to hang out with certain people and things like that, or just having like conversations when like family would call to check on me. I kind of felt like detached a little bit. And then I realized like my eating habits changed severely. Like I started emotionally eating, which has always kind of been a thing of mine, like ever since like I was a kid, but it kind of became like severe when I became like older. I realized that. And then I had like a reduced interest. And then looking back on it, like I remember talking to my doctor about it, like during like one of the common visits, and she told me I might be going through postpartum depression. And it's like I've heard of the term, but I never like had a fully great understanding of it. Like I saw it in like one of my books, what to expect when you're expecting, but I kind of like glanced over it, which was kind of dumb on my part, especially since I have a history of like anxiety and like, depression and stuff. But it's like I said, it's pretty common for women that after childbirth, and like I said, the symptoms are mood swings. You have difficulty bonding with your child. You become withdrawn from family and friends. You lose your appetite, or in my case, emotionally eating. You have reduced interest in like general things. Plus, there's other symptoms like restlessness, lack of concentration. Sometimes you could be intensely angry, and then there's other symptoms like I remember when I knew it was becoming an issue because I started having like. My anxiety started going like through the roof, and I thought like, okay, well, it's just my hormones. But I started having like these thoughts of like, not necessarily like shame or unworthiness, but like thoughts of like hopelessness, because like I said, it was like a tough transition for me because like I gave up working, and then I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to do this for at least like 4 or 5 years. So is this my life now where I'm just like a mom and I just clean up after people? And that was just like a really tough thing for me. And then like I just remember like the thoughts just kept getting worse and worse, to the point where I started getting like thoughts of like self-harm and suicide. And for a second I thought it was like postpartum psychosis, but luckily what I was going through was just postpartum depression, not to be mistaken with postpartum psychosis, which is actually a rare condition that is typically developed in the first week after childbirth. And it's kind of like the same symptoms, but there's more symptoms of like hallucinations and paranoia, and you have obsessive thoughts, and you have more like intense thoughts of like self-harm and suicide. And luckily it didn't get to that point, but there's like a small percentage where other women aren't that lucky. And even like, I didn't realize that even fathers can go through postpartum depression too, because it's like a tough transition for them as well. So luckily I was able to get like a grasp of it when I was able to talk with my primary care doctor. And she helped me realize that even though I have a history of like anxiety and like depression, that what I'm going through isn't my fault. And I think that's like what a lot of people that go through postpartum depression have to kind of realize, is that they have to realize that it's not a weakness, and you don't have like a character flaw. You're not a horrible mom. And I know I definitely came to that conclusion when I started journaling my feelings a lot, because that's something I did always when growing up. Like if I was going through like a really tough time, I would like journal my feelings just to get them out there, especially when I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to. And that helped me out a lot, especially like when I got to the point where I actually contemplated taking my own life one night. Like I remember writing a letter to like say goodbye to my loved ones, and by the time I got to my daughter, like I don't know, something in me snapped where I was like, what the F am I doing? And I remember taking out like my journal in my closet and just writing down what I was feeling, like my feelings of helplessness. And just like once I got it all out, I just remember to have this big cry, and it just felt so cathartic. And I made it a point to just start journaling my feelings after that. And what came out of that is the more I started journaling, the more I got inspired just to write in general. And that turned into me like whenever I did have free time, where like if I was like up late or like in between cleaning, or in between like Natalie taking a nap, I would just start writing like other things, like started writing short stories just for fun. And that turned into me like going like looking for other short stories online. And then I don't know how I came across it. I think either a friend suggested it to me, or like I remember looking at it when I used to do like YouTube videos at Tumblr. Used to have like people used to post their short stories on there. So I started doing it just for fun. And then that kind of snowballed into this huge thing where I started writing fan fiction. And I did that for like maybe like the first 2 or 3 years of Natalie being born. Like I just did it for fun. It was like a hobby. It became a hobby of mine. And it was something that I enjoyed. Like it was silly, but it was fun. Like I enjoyed like creating characters and creating his own little world. And funny enough, I started talking to other people that did the same thing, and I formed like a couple of friendships with people. Like, shout out to Heather in Canada, Ariel, I think she's in Florida, Becca, she's out west. Shout out to Chani, shout out to Amanda, and shout out to Lillian from Jersey. I still have your Christmas card, by the way. That's if you're listening to this. And it was cool to like connect with other people and stuff that shared the same passion. And it became fun. And like somehow that snowballed into me just being like inspired to write again, because like I said, writing kind of like impacted my life. And like I always thought of myself as a writer, and it kind of inspired me to get back to this one project that I was working on before I moved to upstate New York. And long story short, like me writing fan fiction kind of inspired me to get off my ass and finish this book I was working on like years ago. And actually I was able to get it published, and I just re-released like the second edition of it this year. And I think that's just amazing that something so small helped me out of the darkest place of my life. And plus I thought it was cool that like it kind of inspired me to open up about how I was feeling. So like I decided to like talk more about it with my primary care doctor. Plus like when I finally opened up to like my loved ones, like I discovered there was a program that through my husband's job that offered like therapy sessions. Like they offered up to like 8 therapy sessions. So I was able to connect with like a licensed therapist, and that kind of got me on track to get my mental health under control. And luckily I was able to like overcome my postpartum depression. And I just know some people aren't so lucky. And to anybody that's going through postpartum depression, you can just do like I did. You don't necessarily have to journal, but you can like I suggest that like, especially if you realize that you have these symptoms and they don't disappear like after at least 2 weeks, I would contact my doctor. Or like if the symptoms worsen, or you feel like you're having difficulty caring for your child, or you just have difficulty like doing like daily tasks, or you do think there's like a fear of you doing harm to yourself, or like ending your life, I really suggest seeking help. Like you can speak with your partner, your loved ones. You can even even if you don't have anybody close to you, you can even just call 911 or just get in touch with like your local emergency assistance, and they can like direct you to someone to speak with. And plus there's like I said, the primary care. You can like research looking to get in touch with like a mental health professional. And also there's other things like the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. They also have a website. Their number is 1-800-273-TALK, and their website is suicidepreventionlifeline.org. To somebody who is more spiritual, you can talk to your minister, spiritual leader, or anybody that you seek for, spiritual guidance. I remember when I was going through postpartum too, I remember using this website called 7 Cups. It's they offer like a lot of free services. They have exercises. It's amazing. They offer like they offer things where you can talk to like a certified therapist, but if you can't afford it, there's people that like aren't necessarily like qualified, but they're willing to listen to you talk. You can say whatever you want to them, and they can give you resources to seek help, or they can just give you some kind of insight. Because sometimes it's nice to talk to somebody that you don't even know about what you're feeling, and just get some like outside perspective. And then also the last number I'm going to give out is it's a year-round 24-hour treatment and referral information service for people that have mental disorders or are suffering from substance abuse disorders. The number is 1-800-662-HELP. And that's like, that offers like other things as well, where it's like gives you resources like programs and things like that. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, like I know that like talking about mental health is tough for some, but there is help out there. And to anybody that is listening, just know you are not alone in your feelings. And hopefully you are going to take this discussion and hopefully seek help. And I'm going to post also the numbers and the things I suggested on my Instagram, which is, by the way, Awkward Blerd Girl. You can also look for me and those numbers on my Facebook, which is the Awkward Black Nerd Podcast. And hopefully you guys have a great afternoon. Hopefully you're making good choices. Hopefully, despite current events, we just remain hopeful. And that's why it's important now more than ever to go out there and vote. We can't make change unless we unify and shed light on injustice. And hopefully you guys have a great afternoon, and talk to you guys soon. If you are suffering or know someone that is suffering with their mental health or is having suicidal thoughts, please contact the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. The number is 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-TALK. You can also contact our website, which is the suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can also contact 1-800-662-HELP, which is a year-round 24-hour treatment referral information service for those suffering and facing mental health or substance disorders. That number again is 1-800-662-HELP.